The drop pod hit the landing bay with a muted thud. Emergency personnel were already in place, suited, armed, and silent. No one spoke as the metal shell hissed and cracked open, steam venting from its seams like a sigh. One soldier stepped out. Alone, his armor was scorched black, crusted with ash, a torn earth flag clinging to his shoulder like a dying leaf. He didn't limp. He didn't speak. He just stood there, motionless, his visor still down, reflecting the wide, sterile lights above. Earth was supposed to be a routine mission, reclamation, not combat. After decades of silence from the Cradle world, the unified Terran Command had launched Operation Homebound, a team of elite soldiers, equipped with recon drones, survey kits, and light weapons. No sign of threats on the deep scans. Just quiet land, dead cities, ruins. They expected ghosts, not graves. 17 soldiers dropped. One returned. No transmissions. No telemetry. No warning. Only this. A single drop pod punching back into orbit 2 days ahead of schedule. Every comms channel stayed silent the whole way. Even the automated distress beacon was off. It just drifted until command brought it down manually. The soldier's identity came up before he even stepped out. Commander Elias Rourke. 17 confirmed campaigns. 6 citations of valor. 1 confirmed Black Zone extraction. A legend. But no hero walks back alone without a story. And this one had nothing to say. Inside the debriefing chamber, a dozen eyes watched from behind transparent steel. Analyst generals, xenopsychologists. He sat there, still suited, helmet on, hands resting on the table. The first hour passed. Then the second, not a single word. Finally, Admiral Turin issued the directive. Remove the helmet. Security hesitated. The Admiral didn't repeat himself. The armor hissed again as latches disengaged. The helmet came free, revealing a gaunt, pale face beneath. No visible wounds. No burns. Just eyes, sunken and empty like they'd seen too much light. He blinked. Nothing else. No twitch. No flinch. Just the soft sound of his breath. "We need answers," someone muttered. Elias didn't answer. He didn't even glance at the speaker. His eyes stayed fixed on the mirrored wall, as if he knew exactly where everyone was standing behind it. A senior intel officer approached with a datapad. "Commander Rourke, we've identified the remains of your team scattered across the planet's surface. No signs of hostiles. No environmental contamination. Yet the destruction is surgical. You had no orbital support. No drones were recovered. What happened down there?" Silence. "You were authorized to carry nuclear redundancy for code black emergencies. There are energy signatures consistent with a detonation. Was it you? Was it your call?" Still nothing. The Admiral stood. "This isn't a tribunal. Commander, you're not under arrest, but you are in violation of Interstellar Military Code 3.9.2. Failure to report. You will comply." Elias raised his eyes for the first time. No fear. No rage, just the weight of something ancient in his gaze. Then he looked down. His hands curled into fists slowly, as though his body was remembering what it meant to hold something. A thin pulse of tension passed through the observers. The Admiral narrowed his eyes. "You were on the surface for 71 hours. You had a full squad, full supplies, satellite coverage. By every metric, there was nothing there. So what made you stay silent?" Elias inhaled slowly, then exhaled. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't trauma. It was choice. They moved him to a restricted medical wing. Full isolation. Scans showed elevated neural activity, massively elevated. Parts of his brain were operating in patterns researchers had never seen. But no physical damage. No implants. No infection. His body was clean. Too clean. When a medical tech tried to sedate him for deeper scans, Elias looked at her once. She dropped the injector and stepped back, trembling. Her logs were clear. He didn't touch her, didn't threaten her. He just looked, and that was enough. They didn't sedate him again. Instead, they tried interviews, psych evaluations, word games, hollow sim stimuli, all useless. His eyes followed everything. His ears twitched slightly at sound, but his lips never moved. No signs of PTSD. No signs of cognitive decline. He was aware, fully functional, just silent, but he wasn't passive. During the third day, a junior officer noticed something on the terminal in his room. The screen flickered slightly whenever Elias glanced at it. Not system interference, not software glitch, just flickers, timed perfectly with his gaze. When they tried disconnecting the terminal, the flicker moved to the lights, then to the ventilation hum. Subtle, but deliberate. He was communicating. Somehow, they called in Dr. Salin, a linguistic specialist in semiotic cognition. After hours of review, she made a simple declaration. He's not silent because he can't speak. He's silent because language is enough. That theory made its way up the chain fast. Command panicked. If he brought something back, something that changed the way the mind works, then containment wasn't enough. They needed understanding, or control. They tried digital resonance mapping, cognitive syncs, AI-assisted pattern decryption. None worked. His brain was operating at a signal layer nothing could interpret. But still he remained, breathing, watching, occasionally turning his head as if listening to someone just out of earshot. They moved him again, deeper, level 0, maximum isolation. No tech, no interaction, no windows. He didn't resist. No one knew if that made it better or worse. 10 days after his arrival, a guard monitoring the security feed noticed a new detail. Elias had carved something into his arm guard. Tiny etchings, hundreds of lines, not random, not symbolic, just coordinates, stellar coordinates, but none matched known charts. No one said it aloud, but the tension in the air said it for them. These weren't from Earth. The Admiral demanded answers again, this time face to face. What did you see? What did they show you? Elias stared at him for 20 full seconds. Then, for the first time, he moved slowly. He raised his right hand, unstrapped a compartment on his chest plate, and pulled out a small metal insignia, burned, half-melted. It belonged to Lieutenant Aaron Singh, one of the first killed. He set it down on the table. Then he folded his hands and looked away. Still no words. Just the silence of a soldier who had stood at the edge of something unknowable and chosen not to speak of it. Not yet. The med team logged over 50 hours of diagnostics. No abnormalities. No pathogens. No implants. Elias Rourke was, by all measurable standards, human, but nothing about his behavior aligned with human norms. He didn't respond to speech, visuals, temperature changes, or even physical proximity. He blinked when he needed to, breathed when necessary, ate when given food. But every action seemed optional, like he was obeying biological maintenance out of courtesy, not instinct. They tried to provoke him with personal stimuli, family photos, recorded messages from surviving relatives, even combat footage from previous campaigns. Not even a flicker of emotion crossed his face. Dr. Halbert, lead psychologist, reviewed hours of footage and came to a single conclusion. This man isn't suppressing emotion. He's processing on a level where our input doesn't register as relevant. The science division, frustrated, turned to an alternate theory, resonance trauma. Not a psychological breakdown, but a kind of exposure shock caused by something not meant to be perceived. Something too big, too alien. They ran brainwave comparisons. The closest match came from deep-dive psychonauts who'd undergone black hole proximity experiments. High-order theta bursts. Multi-phase gamma patterns. Elias's brain was in that state permanently. They upgraded his clearance and began simulation exposure. He didn't resist. He didn't comply. He simply existed inside their tests. Starship Bridge recreations. Battlefield immersion. Zero-gravity ruins capes. When prompted with virtual memories of Earth, something subtle shifted. His pupils dilated. His fingers twitched. They recorded the smallest measurable spike in stress response. 0.03%. It was the only reaction they'd gotten. Inside the simulation, Elias had walked the ruins of a shattered city. broken monorails, twisted buildings, ash drifting like slow snow. The sky was clear. The silence was total. Then came the moment. He looked toward a collapsed museum dome. There, standing in the rubble, was a projection of his old squad. They were smiling, laughing, frozen in that one perfect moment before the fall. Elias walked past them without pause. No hesitation, no grief. Dr. Halbert terminated the simulation early. Back in observation, tension mounted. The brass wanted answers, not theories. The High Command had invested trillions into Earth's reclamation and lost their most elite unit in under 3 days. If a threat existed, it had to be identified, neutralized, classified, but there was no threat. Only Elias, one of the internal analysts, a rookie named Merrick, proposed a radical approach. Communicate without language. Let the soldiers set the terms. He submitted a file showing how octopuses responded to color sequences rather than stimuli. He argued Elias might be doing something similar, something pre-symbolic, primordial. Desperate for results, Command approved a low-intervention trial. They placed Elias in an empty chamber with a single object, a blank analog notebook. No tech, no instructions. He ignored it for 3 days. Then, without warning, he picked it up. The cameras caught every motion. He didn't write letters. He drew circles, nested, fractal-like spirals, overlapping nodes and symmetrical intersections. It wasn't art. It was design, mathematical precision in every line. Dr. Salen analyzed the patterns. They mirrored gravitational maps of supermassive binary systems, locations hundreds of light years apart, yet plotted with pinpoint accuracy, the kind of detail that required probes, telescopes, and decades of computation. Elias had drawn it from memory. Command panicked. If he'd seen this, he had access knowledge beyond anything human sensors had detected. If he'd understood it, they were no longer just dealing with a soldier. They were dealing with something more. But still he wouldn't speak. Interviews resumed. A different tone now. Less accusation, more appeal. They brought in an old friend, Captain Liz Fane, a former squad mate discharged after a spinal injury. She sat across from him for 47 minutes, told stories, joked, cried. He never looked at her. When she left, she whispered, "You're still in there. I know you are. Whatever happened, it didn't take you." And just before the door closed, Elias tapped once on the table. One slow, precise sound. Everyone caught it, replayed it, analyzed it. It was Morse. Single word. Wait. From that moment on, they stopped pushing. No more simulations. No interrogations. They monitored only. Fed him. Let him draw. Let him be. Every day, the notebook changed. New shapes. New systems. Pages filled, replaced. Patterns evolved. And then, one morning, a line appeared. They are not gone. Just that. Written in clean block letters, right at the top of a blank page. The message sent shockwaves through the station. The implication was enormous. Was he referring to his team? Humanity? Something else entirely? Dr. Salen pushed for a follow-up. She was granted 5 minutes. When she entered his room, he was standing by the wall, not facing her, just still. "I read your message," she said carefully. "Do you mean your squad? Are they alive?" No reply. She tried again. "Are you telling us someone brought them back?" Silence. But then a small change. Elias walked to the center of the room, knelt, and drew a triangle with his finger on the floor. Then he placed his hand inside the triangle and held it there. Salen whispered, "It's not a symbol, is it? It's a map." Elias looked up directly at the camera. One of the analysts watching muttered, "He's showing us where." Security burst into motion, trying to trace the geometric orientation of the triangle in relation to known stellar maps. It took 3 hours, but they finally triangulated the coordinates. The system was dark. No inhabited worlds. No trade routes. A cold sector left unexplored due to radiation storms and magnetic distortion. But the triangle matched. Command debated a reconnaissance mission. Admiral Turin was skeptical. We can't just jump into a dead zone because a silent man drew a triangle. But Dr. Halbert overruled him. He didn't just draw it. He waited to draw it, which means he waited for us to be ready. Rourke remained silent, but he nodded when they prepared the transmission. A subtle dip of the head. Once, approval. The launch team named the probe Echo 1. As the ship left orbit, cameras inside Rourke's chamber caught him standing once more. This time, his hand moved up, 3 fingers extended, palm open. No one understood the gesture, but everyone watching felt the same thing. Permission, not command, not warning, invitation. On the 12th day, something changed. The lights across the station flickered, first in the lower decks, then spreading like a pulse to every corridor. Monitors reset, comms buzz static. The security grid collapsed for 7 full seconds. Backup systems kicked in too late. In the isolation chamber, Elias Rourke stood up. No one had opened the door. He hadn't forced it. It had simply unlocked. He walked out. Cameras tracked his path, but no security personnel intercepted him. Not by choice. Every route he took coincided with systems still rebooting. He moved calmly, deliberately, as if he had memorized the station's architecture. His armor still creaked with every step, the only sound in a corridor otherwise silent. He made his way to Observation Deck 5, a panoramic overlook reserved for officers. There, the view faced Earth, a black marble of ash, clouded by the scorched remnants of atmosphere. But Elias didn't look at Earth. He looked past it. The emergency lights cast long shadows behind him. Observers flooded the security feeds, but issued no orders. The room around him was empty, yet he stood still, like he was waiting for something to arrive. Then his hand rose. 2 fingers pointed toward a distant section of the sky, beyond any known trade route or charted anomaly. He held the position for several seconds, then slowly brought his hand back down. Across the station, technicians scrambled to align stellar maps with the coordinates. They found it, a binary star system deep in the Midas Drift, previously considered uninhabitable due to gravitational shearing and radiation surges. No known life, no signal traffic, no satellites, just a location. Back in the chamber, Elias turned his gaze downward, and as he did, a silent flood of memory gripped him. The fire had started at the outskirts of New Osaka. Buildings collapsed from the inside. Time seemed fractured, gravity distorted. His squad was scattered, split across kilometers in seconds. One screamed over the radio, then vanished mid-transmission. They thought it was an ambush. They fought shadows that had no origin point, creatures that left no bodies. The terrain folded around them, literally, bending in curves that made no physical sense. GPS died. Sensors returned static. The Earth they landed on was not the Earth they left. He remembered standing in a flooded courtyard, surrounded by silence, rifle in hand. Rain fell upward. Lieutenant Singh had reached him then. His voice was calm, but his eyes were gone. Not gouged, not damaged, just absent, as if something had claimed the light behind them. He handed Elias a small cube. No explanation. Just pressed it into his palm and said one word. Remember? Then he walked away into the white. The next thing Elias remembered was the sky turning inside out. The clouds spiraled into a single point, like the eye of a collapsing storm. From it emerged a structure, a construct the size of a city, orbiting inches above the surface without touching it. And inside that moment, he heard it. Not a voice, not language, a presence. It didn't speak. It revealed. Memories not his own poured into his mind. Histories, civilizations, patterns, worlds lost not to war, but to understanding. Cultures that had reached a point beyond language, beyond division, where thought itself became structure, where meaning was too vast for symbols. And in that sea of revelation, he saw his team again. But they were different. Alive, somehow, changed, not captured, not harmed, transformed. No pain, no decay, no need for flesh in the shape it once held. They had become part of it, whatever it was. And he understood. The silence wasn't grief. It was protection. What he'd seen couldn't be translated. Not without reducing it, not without breaking it. So he said nothing. He returned alone, chose silence as a shield. On the observation deck, the stars shimmered, and in that moment, he moved again. From the inside of his chest plate, he withdrew the small cube Singh had given him. It was no larger than a data chip. But when he pressed it against a reinforced window, a faint glow radiated outward, a circular pulse, like a sonar wave. Every sensor on the station flared. Instruments overloaded. Gravity shifted by 0.1% for a full second. Then silence. And then light. Out in the void, a pinprick appeared. Not a ship, not a weapon. A door, a tear in the fabric of space, unfolding like an iris. And through it came shapes. Not ships, not beings. Just concepts made visible. Lines that moved like thoughts. Structures that folded in impossible angles. For a brief instant, every human on the station felt something in their chest. Not fear, not awe, but invitation. The door stayed open for 11 seconds. Then it closed. The cube in Elias's hand dissolved to ash. He turned away from the window. Inside command, no one spoke. Every ranking officer sat frozen. The admiral finally leaned forward, whispering more to himself in the room. We were never alone. And yet, it wasn't alien life they feared now. It was how much Elias had known and for how long. What he'd chosen to carry. Alone, Dr. Halber recorded in his final note that day. Commander Rourke represents the highest expression of human resilience. Not in defiance, not in force, but in choice. He saw something that shattered every framework we have, and chose silence, not out of fear, but out of mercy. Back in his chamber, Elias sat once more. His breathing was steady. On the wall, someone had placed a simple screen, disconnected, unpowered. But he looked at it anyway, and slowly, with deliberate purpose, he raised a single hand and pressed it to the surface. 5 fingers, a handprint, a reminder he was still human, and he remembered all of it. In the weeks that followed, High Command issued strict containment protocols. The footage from the cube's activation was classified above Omega Tier. Only 12 people had full clearance to view it. Every conversation, every heartbeat around Elias Rourke was monitored in real time. But none of them, not the scientists, not the tacticians, not the psych evaluators, could bring themselves to touch the question that sat in every room. What if he hadn't come back alone? Elias spoke no words, yet information radiated from him, not in signals, not in writing, but in the growing realization that his presence had gravity, not metaphorically, physically. Particles moved differently around him. Electrical pulses drifted out of sync near his chamber. AI assistants experienced latency spikes. No system failure, no measurable fault, just a kind of dissonance, like reality itself was struggling to localize him. Then came the dreams. Personnel began reporting vivid sequences, not nightmares, not visions, shared experiences. They described vast halls of silent light, language made of geometry, and voices that were never heard but fully understood. The dreams always ended the same way, with a sense of arrival, followed by a profound desire to listen. Dr. Halberd documented over 50 such reports. The individuals weren't mentally unstable, nor previously exposed to trauma. Many were off-duty staff with no prior contact with Elias. The cube had done something, or maybe it had only revealed what was already here. And still, he waited. Somewhere in deep space, the probe, Echo 1, moved steadily toward the coordinates. Updates came in bursts, fragmented and delayed by distance and radiation fields. Most of the transmissions were static. But then, at the edge of its approach vector, the data changed. Patterns emerged in the noise. Prime numbers, nested harmonics, fractal refractions in sensor telemetry, and buried in one sequence, an exact replica of Elias's first drawing, the spiral. The probe never returned. Its feed cut out during what should have been a routine pass around the Midas Drift's third dead planet. In its final transmission, for 0.4 seconds, a shape appeared on screen, a structure so massive it dwarfed the planetary horizon. a ring of shifting material, not orbiting the planet, but anchored to something deeper, something beneath space as they knew it. Then blackness. The Council demanded explanation. Earth's reclamation funding was frozen. All interstellar mission expansions halted. But none of that mattered. Not anymore. Because 3 days after the probe was lost, a vessel appeared in Seoul. It didn't enter by warp. It didn't use gates. It was just there, hovering just outside Saturn's orbit. No heat signature. No movement. No communication. Just presence. The structure was unlike anything in the registry. A smooth shell of obsidian and translucent panels, moving without thrust. Not enormous, barely large in a freighter, but wrong in every measurable way. Its geometry didn't match known physics. Surfaces overlapped without edges. Shadows cast in impossible directions. Telescopes caught reflections from stars no longer visible from Earth. The ship said nothing, did nothing, until Elias stood. For the first time since his return, he moved with urgency. No guard stopped him. No walls held him. Doors opened before he arrived. Even the station's core AI adjusted schedules without human input. He entered the shuttle bay, fully suited, and walked toward the oldest, smallest personal craft they had. He keyed in manual launch commands. No auto and AV, no backup AI. No one stopped him. Admiral Trin stood on the observation deck and said only, "Let him go." Elias departed the station in silence. His ship coasted through the system for hours, curving past Mars, slingshotting around Jupiter, until it slowed before Saturn. Before them, the alien vessel opened, not with a hatch, but with a fold. Space peeled back, not revealing an interior, but erasing the boundary between inside and out. Elias flew into it and vanished. Sensors recorded the whole event. No energy spikes, no weapon signatures, just absorption, and then silence. For 3 days, nothing moved. The alien craft held position, unchanging. Observers counted its edges, counted again. The number never matched. Some saw 9, others 11. One AI core refused to describe it at all, simply returning the word, unresolvable. On the 4th day, it left. No warp, no gate, just gone, like a page turning in a book you weren't reading. Back on the station, Elias's room remained untouched. The last page of his final notebook displayed only 3 words. "They are listening." Dr. Halberd made her last report shortly after. She recommended that no pursuit be made, no message sent, not because they pose a threat, but because humanity had reached a threshold, a moment of choice. To advance did not mean to conquer. To be human did not mean to remain the same. Rourke had chosen not to speak, because language was a wall, not a bridge. What he encountered needed to be felt, not explained. And perhaps that was the final lesson he brought back. Not about aliens or lost civilizations, but about us, about who we become when we stop insisting we already understand. Command archived his file under a new designation, Ambassador Beyond Threshold. Unofficially, they called him the last soldier of Earth. But in time, that title faded, because more reports came, not of war, not of invasion, but of light in the sky, of dreams shared by thousands, of structures glimpsed on the edges of known space, whispering harmonies into the void. Something had changed. Elias Rourke hadn't returned with secrets. He had returned with permission, and quietly, over decades, humanity listened, adapted, learned, not through conquest, not through dominance, but through reverence. A soldier had gone to war, and what he found wasn't an enemy. It was a door, and through that door waited not death, but transformation.